Hi guys, my name is MelissaJoyce and welcome to the next video in my MoneyHoney series. I will say the same thing that I think I say every time I start one of these videos, which is if you have not watched any of my previous videos before in my MoneyHoney series, I would strongly suggest that you go back to the start. I will put a card up here for the intro video because this series really makes the most sense if you watch your way through it to understand the path that we're following, what it is that I'm walking you through, and there are a number of steps before you get to this video that will really help this video make sense. If you are somebody who is watching and has watched my previous videos, then welcome to this one. What we are talking about today is the next part in our fourth achievement, which is getting out of debt. And this is the one that is probably the scariest one, but it is also the one that is going to have a big impact on your life if you are somebody who does have some debt that you want to pay off. And it is the part that may take the longest, but as I said, once you get out of debt and make a commitment to not go back into it again, this is really going to be something that turns your financial life around and helps you really do things differently in the future. So in our last video, we got together all of the information about the debts that we want to pay off. And that was all we did last week, was get that information together. So we should now have a list of all of our debts, a list of the outstanding balance or the outstanding principal or the amount owed on each of those debts, the interest rate that is on them, and the current minimum monthly payment for all of those debts. Now I asked you to get the information together for all of the debts, like including your mortgage, car loans, student loans, anything like that. We're not necessarily paying off all of those debts in this period, but it's good information for you to have to see all of the outstanding debts that you have out there. It's just a good all-around view to have as part of your financial well-being. So what we are going to do today is talk about the method we are going to follow, or two choices of methods that you can follow in order to pay off your debt. I'm going to say right now that there is no trick to this. There's nothing that's going to make it necessarily easier, or there's no magic thing that you can do to make them go away or make it so you don't have to cut back on lifestyle to pay debts off faster. If you have debt that you want to pay off, you're going to have to maybe sacrifice a little bit to get the extra money each month to pay the debts off faster. What I will tell you is this is going to be something that really shows you that you can set a goal and know that you can achieve it. So it's going to be maybe not the easiest thing you've ever done, but it's really going to show you what is a necessary thing in your life, what your needs are versus what your wants are, like what you can cut back on in order to get out of debt faster. So I'm not going to pretend it's going to be fun, but I think if you get really into wanting to pay off the debt, really, get in there and try to cut back on other things as much as you can to put all the money that you have towards debt and get it done quickly, then that is going to really help you carry through. There is something that happens when you sort of just keep paying minimum payments for a long time, spread debt out, that it just becomes a normal thing in your life and you don't get excited about paying it off, you get tired. I've heard Gail Vaz Oxlade, who I've mentioned before, somebody that I watch, talk about it being as debt fatigue. If your debt repayment plan is going to extend beyond 3 years, it's just going to get tiring. Like there's only so long that you can maintain that drive to pay off debt for before you just get really exhausted of it. So what we are going to try to do, no matter which method you choose, and I'll get onto the methods in a second, is really try to shorten the length of time that it takes you to pay off debt as much as you can. And that really means putting as much money each month as you can towards paying off debt, which goes back to our very first step, which is doing your budget, to really see how much room you can make in your budget for paying off debt. So now that we've mentioned that, we're going to go on to the two methods that you can use to pay off your debt. And these are sort of espoused by different people. They are the Avalanche method and the Snowball method. And I'm not really sure where these terms started from. The first time I'd heard the term the Snowball method was from Dave Ramsey, who is a personal finance guru person in the States. I've mentioned him before. He has some interesting points of view. He doesn't super mesh with my personal, he has a lot of opinions on politics and lifestyle and religion that do not mesh with my own. So while I think he has a number of really good points about how things are done, I have a hard time necessarily recommending him, but if you want to listen to podcasts or find some extra information, he does have it there. So he is the first person that I heard talk about the snowball method. The idea being that you take all of your debts on that list that we put together last week, and you start with the one with the smallest outstanding balance and work towards paying that off first. The idea being that you pay the minimum monthly balance on every debt except for that smallest outstanding balance one. You put as much money as you can towards that, get it paid off as fast as you can, then that debt is cleared, and you move on to the next smallest one, paying minimums on everything else and put that much more money towards the next one. The idea being that as you pay off debts, you have a larger and larger and larger amount to put towards the next one that you're paying off. So it kind of snowballs. As you pay off the smaller outstanding balance ones, you then move up and you have more and more money. It's really a psychological kind of thing because you see easy wins right out of the gate. So if you have a debt that is, $250, you might be able to get that paid off in a month. And then you sort of get that feeling of like getting your teeth into it and thinking, yes, I can do this. And then maybe the next one is $1,000 and it takes you, 2 or 3 months to pay that off. But you see that finish line really soon and you're excited to get there. It's really a psychological thing. It's not so much about paying it off in a way that causes you to pay the least interest. It's about the motivational, psychological reasons about paying off the smallest debts first to get you really invested. And by the time you get to your largest debt, which may take you a while to pay off, you've had all these successes and you really feel excited about getting your debts paid off. That is the snowball method because you're sort of snowballing the smaller debts, getting them paid off, rolling the amount into the next larger one, rolling the amount you have each month into the next one. So that's the snowball method. The avalanche method, I think, was named that in a response to the snowball method. I think the idea of avalanche is that it goes faster. I don't think there's really necessarily a real reason why it was called that. But in the avalanche method, what you are going to do is take a look at all those debts that you have and start with paying the one with the highest interest rate, because the highest interest rate is your most expensive debt. So if you have a debt like a credit card, which tends to be quite high, it could be as high as almost 20% interest, it numerically makes sense for you to pay that off first. Again, pay minimum monthly balance on all the ones except the highest interest rate debt, which you put all of your extra money towards until you pay it off. And then you've paid off your most expensive debt, and then you move on to your next most expensive debt. Pay minimums on everything else, and then throw all that extra money towards the next one. This is the one that logically makes the most sense because if you compare the two, you will pay less interest in the avalanche method over the payoff of all of your loans rather than the snowball one. The problem with the avalanche method is that it could be your largest debt, let's say a student loan that might be like $30,000 it's probably not going to be your most expensive debt. Let's just say it is. You're going to take a long time to pay that off and you're not going to see a quick and easy win from it the same way that you would with the snowball method. So that might be a lot of information to absorb all at once, but what I'm going to tell you about, and we're going to walk through an example here, is of a website that you can help you sort of measure a number of these things. So I'm going to suggest that you go to the website UnBuriedMe, and UnBuriedMe is actually unbury.me. And I'll put a link to that in the down bar down below and also show it to you right here on the screen. When you go there, it will very clearly ask you for your debts with the same information that I had you gather last week. Once you put all of those debts in, there is a slider to show how much you have each month to put towards the debt. It will then show you, as you slide up to the amount that you have, how long it's going to take you to pay off all of your debts, the amount of interest you're going to pay on all of them. And you can switch between the Avalanche method and the Snowball method because it has both of those as options. And when you do that, you can take a look at the difference between the two. So let's use a bit of an example of 3 debts that I put in to show you the difference in these. I used the example of a credit card debt, and I named it Credit Card Visa, of $5,000. I used round numbers here, at 19.99%. And I put in that that debt had a minimum monthly payment of $112. I then put in a MasterCard, credit card MasterCard, and it is a $500 debt at 14.99%, and its minimum monthly payment is $15. Finally, I put in a larger loan, which is a student loan, which is $30,000 at 3%. Student loans tend to have a payoff period of 10 years, and its minimum monthly payment is $364. So when you do all of that, the actual minimum monthly payment to keep all the debts current is $491. That is the minimum monthly payment. And you can see if you only paid the minimums on all of those debts, you would end up paying off the principal, which is $35,500. That is the actual amount owed on each debt. And you're going to pay just over $7,788 in interest, and it's going to take you until June of 2024 to pay it off. Which would mean it would take you 7 years to get debt-free, and that is going to take a long time. That's a long time to always have that debt hanging over your head. If we then say that we want to pay off, let's say we can put $1,000 a month towards these debts. So we're going to slide that slider there over to 1,000. And that means that it's going to take 3 years, which is a good time frame. I mean, less is better, but 3 years to get all of these debts paid off, to pay off $35,500. And we're only going to pay $2,153.48 in interest. That is quite a bit better than the first option. So you can see if we look at the monthly payments here, we have the Avalanche method as being chosen, which means we're going to start with paying off the credit card Visa, which is the $5,000 loan, and we're going to be putting most of our money towards that, and we get that paid off in 5 months basically. So that would be November 2017, and you can see that that's where that goes down and gets paid off. We then start focusing on the MasterCard, and you can see it was only being paid $15 each month until then, and we get that basically paid off the next month after the Visa was paid off. And then we get into the student loan, which is going to take quite a bit longer until we get that paid off in basically 3 years. So you can see that has, $2,153.48 in interest paid, and we get it paid off in March 2020. If we then move on to the lowest principal method, which is the Snowball one, it basically takes the same amount of time, March 2020, but you can see we end up paying a little bit more in interest. Not a lot, but a little. And it's going to really vary depending on the size of the loans and the interest rates, but there is going to be a difference between these two methods. And it is going to be higher interest in the Snowball method. But what you can see here is that MasterCard gets paid off in like a month, and then it is out of your life forever. And then you move on to the Visa, and it gets paid off just a month later than it would in the other one, and then we move on to the student loan. So you can play around with this calculator a bit to see how long it's going to take you to pay off your loans, which method you want to use, and get fired up about how much you can really spare out of your budget each month to put towards those debts. In a later video, we're going to talk about motivation and ways that you can keep yourself motivated through these time frames. Looking at the example I had there, you can see that first month you get a debt paid off right away if you use the Snowball method, or in the first few months, and then you get onto that student loan, and that's the one that is a bit more of a marathon rather than a sprint. So we're going to talk about ways to keep yourself motivated through the 3 years that it might take to pay off some of these debts. You may ask which method I would suggest. I think I suggest a I suggest that you take a look at the difference in your loans when you put them into the calculator, but I would say that I sort of see a blended method. So if there are debts that you can get paid off in 3 months or less, or 4 months or less, put those at the start. Get those done and get them out of your life. Let's say that you have a $15,000 student loan at a higher interest rate and a $10,000 student loan at a lower interest rate. I would go for the higher interest rate one first because those are still fairly sizable loans. And you want to get the one with the higher interest paid off first. But if you have some of those debts that are, you know, under $1,000, under $2,000, maybe you want to get those done first and out of the way and give yourself the boost of knowing that you've got that done and you can just close that card and be done with it and not worry about it through the rest of your paying off journey. I should mention again, I mentioned this a couple videos ago, but I'm just going to mention again, what we are talking about paying off in this stage is not your mortgage, it is your consumer debt. And you can choose whether or not you want to pay off your student loans or your car in this more intensive period. I would suggest that you look at doing that, but some people don't mind paying a student loan over the 10-year period. Some people don't mind having a 5-year car loan if it fits into their transportation part of their budget. I would suggest any credit cards, any buy now, pay later, any payday loans, any truly consumer debt, which is not something for a house, a car, or a student education, should be in this part of your paying off period. I think that is everything I have to say for today. In next week's video, I'm going to go through any sort of common questions you may have about this, because this was a lot of information all at once. I'll either look at common questions or look at doing a few more examples of how you do this, because this was a lot of information all at once. I get that. Again, I will put the link to the website that I was playing around with down below. I would suggest you go and play around with it. And see what you want to do at this point. But start looking at next month's budget and see how much you can make room in that budget to have a higher amount to put towards your debt. Because what you'll see in that calculator is that, okay, Avalanche versus Snowball makes a bit of difference, but what makes the most difference is how much money you put towards paying it off. You can even start to look at how you might be able to get some more money each month specifically to put towards debt. You know, are there garage sales you can have? Can you do some extra babysitting? Are there things that you can take a few more hours on at work to get that money to start putting towards the debt and get it paid off faster? I know this is a scary one. It's a lot. This is where it starts to get, you know, scary. Because you really have to look at the reality of the work that you have to do to pay off the debt that you might have. I can tell you as somebody who did this, that the feeling of satisfaction that you get at the end of this, when you get through it, you are going to feel like there is nothing on earth that you can't do, and you are going to feel so incredibly in control of your life that it is the most amazing feeling that you can have. We will talk, as I said, more about motivation, and I am here for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I will also leave my email down below, so if you have any questions you don't feel comfortable putting in the comments, send me an email. I am more than happy to help. I am not a trained expert, but I am somebody who has lived through this. So we will get this done together, and it will be good. This will be a really good thing to get done. That's it for today. If you did not follow my earlier warning, then I will put a link at the very end of this video towards the very first MoneyHoney's video, so you can watch through the playlist. If you have not subscribed, I would suggest doing so. I do these videos every Sunday, or at least I try to as much as possible. And if you are subscribed, you will see it come up in your subscribed feed. So you can either click on the subscribe button down below or on my face at the end of this video. And if you like this, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me know that people are watching and just makes me feel good. Thank you again, and I will see you again soon. Bye.